A drug cartel generating billions of dollars in illegal cash faces an immediate problem. That money is evidence. Dirty cash cannot be invested or spent freely without risking incrimination. To gain any real utility, these profits must be injected into the legitimate economy. These illicit flows generally follow two patterns. Money laundering focuses on hiding massive, high-volume criminal profits. Terrorist financing operates differently, often requiring small sums that may even originate from legitimate sources, making the movement harder to distinguish from everyday transactions. Because they process trillions of dollars in daily transactions, banks and investment firms function as the primary transit points for global capital. This high transaction volume makes financial institutions the specific target for actors attempting to move illicit assets. Processing these funds turns a financial institution into an accomplice to the underlying crime. By failing to intercept a transaction, the firm provides the infrastructure needed for organized crime to thrive. The first stage of this process is placement. This is the moment a launderer introduces physical cash into the financial system or converts it into a digital asset, such as Bitcoin. To block this entry, regulators mandate customer due diligence and know-your-client rules. Before forming a business relationship, firms are legally required to verify the client's identity and confirm the specific source of their wealth. High-profile clients, known as politically exposed persons, trigger an automatic escalation. Because government officials and their families hold positions of public trust, they require a more rigorous risk assessment pathway, known as enhanced due diligence. This initial vetting process dictates who is permitted to participate in the global financial system. It ensures that only verified, legitimate capital enters the network. In layering, launderers rapidly move funds through foreign exchange, shares, or bonds to sever ties to criminal origins, creating a complex web. Because any transaction could be a layering step, firms appoint a money laundering reporting officer to analyze suspicions. Staff are trained to identify 5 specific offenses, including the concealment or acquisition of criminal property. However, the most significant legal risk is a failure to disclose. If an employee suspects money laundering and doesn't report it immediately, they can be held personally liable for the oversight. When a suspicion arises, the firm files a suspicious activity report with law enforcement. During this time, the employee must avoid tipping off the client, as alerting a suspect that they are under investigation is a criminal offense. At this level, compliance functions as a real-time criminal investigation. Every reported transaction gives law enforcement the data needed to trace and freeze illicit assets. The final stage is integration. After successful layering, the funds appear entirely clean to the ultimate beneficiary. The criminal can now withdraw the money or invest it in long-term projects like real estate or legitimate businesses. Once an asset reaches this stage, proving a link to the original crime becomes difficult for law enforcement. The illegal source is buried under a mountain of seemingly legitimate paperwork. Because these networks ignore national borders, the defense must be international. The 1989 G7 summit established the Financial Action Task Force to set global standards, pressuring countries to implement strict anti-money laundering measures. These standards are enforced through the United Nations and the IMF. The UN uses international conventions to obligate countries to freeze terrorist assets, while the IMF provides technical assistance to help developing nations close vulnerabilities in their financial sectors. A globalized financial sector requires a globalized regulatory response. By coordinating these standards, international bodies ensure there are fewer safe havens for criminal capital. Anti-money laundering operations form the primary defense against the economic power of drug cartels, corruption, and terrorism. These rules disrupt the financial incentives that drive organized crime. Regulators hold individual officers personally liable for systemic failures. An officer who ignores suspicious activity faces a personal jail term, loss of their professional license, and unlimited financial fines. While systems are automated, the effectiveness of the law depends on the ethical standards of individual humans. Vigilant staff members remain the mechanism that identifies the subtle patterns of financial crime. In a connected market, a single unverified transaction can compromise the integrity of the entire system. Maintaining these standards is what protects the stability of the global economy from the corrosive influence of criminal assets.